Among our other animals are the goat, the dog, and, of course, the horse. Midnight transcends the role of a mere horse. He has been my steadfast companion through the solitude of my days. He is my family, my love, and my steadfast companion. Never did I imagine that my affection for Midnight would morph into something so grotesque. He was my steed, my closest companion, my refuge from reality. Yet, in the gaze of onlookers, it morphed into a source of shame, a distortion of what once was. It began with a soft murmur. A mere jest, indeed. Lucy certainly adores that horse a tad excessively, Mrs. Carter, our neighbor, remarked with a sly grin as she leaned against the fence. I dismissed it with a chuckle, giving it little thought. In small towns, conversation flows freely, and as I devoted my leisure hours to Midnight, I assumed they simply found our companionship entertaining. Yet, the murmurs intensified. Initially, it was merely the peculiar glances. Acquaintances I had known for years would hesitate before offering their greetings. Silence enveloped the space as I entered, conversations fading into the background. Then the whispers began to circulate. I encountered them at the feed store, in the diner, and even within the walls of the church. She finds herself perpetually solitary within that stable. It seems she has decided to keep Derek away from the horse. There's something unsettling about the way she gazes at it. I wish to think that Derek would dismiss such absurdity. One evening, while I was brushing Midnight in the stable, he entered with an expression I had never encountered before, a curious blend of disgust and anger. "We need to talk," he said, his voice strained. I pivoted to meet his gaze, my fingers remaining entwined in Midnight's flowing mane. "Concerning what matter?" Derek's jaw tightened with tension. "Concerning the matter at hand, the connection that exists between you and Midnight." A frown creased my brow. "What is it that you refer to?" He exhaled sharply, his hand moving to his forehead, as if searching for the precise words to express himself. Whispers surround Lucy, a murmur of voices echoing in the air. "It is said that you devote an excessive amount of time to his company. Your concern for that horse surpasses all else." My eyes fluttered, a wave of bewilderment washing over me. "Certainly, my feelings for him run deep. Derek is my horse. You're aware of that." He edged nearer, his voice lowering to a whisper. "It goes beyond that, Lucy." Whispers circulated among the crowd. He paused, a moment of uncertainty hanging in the air, before finally voicing his thoughts. "There are whispers that you might be involved with him." My breath hitched in my throat. For an instant, I believed I had misunderstood. "What is this?" Derek let out a heavy sigh, his shoulders taut with tension. "It may seem absurd, yet this town, well, you understand how people can be. Whispers abound about you and Midnight, engaged." A tumultuous wave surged within me, a blend of fury and incredulity swirling in my gut. "Derek, do you truly hold that belief?" He hesitated before responding, and that silence, indeed, pierced deeper than any words ever could. "I don't know what to believe," he finally confessed, his gaze fixed on me, tinged with a hint of sorrow. "You seem to be perpetually present in this space. Your conversations seem to revolve around Midnight far more than they do around me. The manner in which you conduct yourself in his presence. I'm uncertain, Lucy. It is unusual." My eyes burned with unshed tears. "Unusual?" "Derek, I've had Midnight since his earliest days as a foal. I tended to him with care and devotion during his time of illness. I molded him with my own hands. Indeed, my affection for him knows no bounds. However, not in that manner. How could you possibly entertain such a thought? I wish to banish it from my mind." Derek interrupted, his fingers raking through his hair. "However, it isn't merely a handful of individuals, Lucy. The chatter is everywhere. Have you ever experienced the situation where colleagues at work inquire about my wife? Unwell?" A chilling shiver coursed down my spine. This was far more than mere idle chatter. This was tearing me apart. I glanced at Midnight, his large, deep-set eyes as serene as always. He remained oblivious to the world's inherent ugliness. He placed his trust in me, as he always had. I took a deep breath, redirecting my gaze to Derek. "It's a matter of faith. You either accept my words or you dismiss them." Derek fixed his gaze on me for what felt like an eternity, then, with a slow shake of his head, turned and exited the stable. In an instant, everything I knew began to unravel. The following morning, I ventured into town, clinging to the hope of maintaining the facade of normalcy. Yet it was not. The gazes were more piercing. The murmurs grew more intense. At the grocery store, Mrs. Carter lingered near the produce section, her keen gaze slicing through me with an intensity that was almost palpable. I turned away from her, reaching for a bag of apples, the beloved snack of midnight. Yet, as I pivoted, her words slipped from her lips in a hushed murmur. She goes so far as to purchase delightful treats for it, just as a beloved might. I stood still, caught in a moment of disbelief. My fingers tightened around the bag. A searing tide of shame and fury surged within me. I felt an overwhelming urge to spin around and shout, to confront her with the madness of her thoughts. Yet, I was aware that it would prove futile. Individuals of her kind were indifferent to the truth. Their sole concern was stoking the flames. I compelled myself to turn and leave. Yet, the most troubling aspect? It was not solely Mrs. Carter. At the checkout counter, the cashier, Janet, a familiar face from my high school days, avoided my gaze. As she passed me my change, her fingers barely grazed mine, as if I were tainted by some affliction. "Have a nice day," she said, her voice rigid and unyielding. I stepped outside, my heart racing in my chest. I felt an overwhelming urge to weep, to shout, to vanish into thin air. How had circumstances spiraled into such despair? Upon my arrival, I found Derek in the living room, absorbed in the glow of his phone. As I stepped inside, he lifted his gaze, and the weariness in his eyes was unmistakable. "Did you venture into town?" he inquired. I nodded, placing the grocery bag upon the counter. It was dreadful. With a weary sigh, he rubbed his temples, seeking solace in the simple act. "Lucy, I'm at a loss for what steps to take next." I hurled the bag onto the counter with force. "What do you mean? You're uncertain about your next steps. You ought to stand by my side. It is imperative that you express to others just how absurd this situation is." Derek rose to his feet, his jaw clenched in tension. "I have stood by your side. What is it that you wish for me to express, Lucy? Is it truly normal that my wife dedicates all her time to the stable, conversing softly with a horse?" I stared at him in astonishment. "Do you hear your own words? You are my husband, Derek. Do you truly believe what I'm saying?" He paused, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. The weight of that hesitation inflicted a deeper pain than anything else could. "I don't know what to believe," he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. "My desire is to place my trust in you. Yet this town refuses to let it slip away. It is tearing us apart, Lucy." I tightened my grip, fists balling up in determination. "Negative. It is tearing me apart." With that, I seized Midnight's apples and marched out to the stable. Midnight approached me with a gentle nuzzle, his warm breath soothing the tremors in my hands. At the very least, he still placed his trust in me. I found myself in the stable, my fingers idly weaving through the luxurious black mane of Midnight. The murmurs of the town trailed behind me, and now, the stillness in the stable weighed more than it ever had. Midnight brushed against my shoulder softly, as though attuned to my melancholy. "You're the only one who sees me the same way," I whispered, resting my forehead against his neck. In these tranquil moments, I had always discovered a sense of solace. Midnight had accompanied me through countless trials, solitary nights, difficult days, and instances when even Derek failed to grasp my feelings. Yet now, the sanctuary that had once provided solace was unraveling the fabric of my marriage. The sound of the stable door creaking open reached my ears. "Derek," I let out a weary sigh, my gaze fixed elsewhere, avoiding his presence. "If you've come to level accusations at me once more, I suggest you hold your tongue." He let out a sharp breath. "Lucy, let's go. I am not placing any blame on you. So, why do you seem to be taking his words at face value?" My voice faltered, despite my utmost attempt to convey strength. Derek advanced, halting just a few paces distant. "I find myself at a loss for words," he confessed. "Your affection for Midnight is clear to me. I am certain you would never engage in such an act." I pivoted to confront him. "Why do you falter each time I inquire about your belief in me?" Derek swept his fingers through his hair. "Because your behavior deviates from that of a typical horse owner, Lucy." My heart tightened. "Beg your pardon?" He let out a weary sigh. "Few individuals dedicate countless hours each day within the stable, engaging in heartfelt conversations with their horse as if sharing secrets with a cherished companion. Many individuals do not react with the same level of defensiveness as you do." My gaze fixed on him, a wave of disbelief washing over me. "Are you suggesting that the majority of individuals are indifferent?" Most people don't dedicate their entire lives to it. He remarked, his voice now softened. Lucy, it seems you rely on midnight far more than you do on me. I took a deep breath. That is not accurate. Is it not? Derek's gaze sought out my own. When did we last engage in a meaningful dialogue? When did we last venture out? Just the two of us. I parted my lips, yet paused in uncertainty. He was not mistaken. My hours were increasingly devoted to midnight, overshadowing my moments with Derek. Yet, that did not diminish my love for Derek in the slightest. I had no idea you felt that way, I murmured gently. Derek exhaled deeply, a weight of weariness evident in his breath. I long for the return of my beloved wife, Lucy. A heavy guilt nestled itself deep within my chest. In my relentless pursuit of self-defense, I had overlooked the profound impact my actions were having on him. Excessively. I remain, I murmured softly. Derek moved in, extending his hand toward mine. Then reveal it to me. I paused, my gaze fixed on midnight. He remained motionless, observing us intently. For the very first time, I found myself in a state of conflict. Midnight had forever been my sanctuary, my refuge. Yet, was I employing him as a means to escape my own union? I inclined my head with deliberation. Very well, I shall make an attempt. Derek clasped my hand tightly. That is all I require. Yet, as I uttered that vow, a deep-seated awareness settled within me. The town would not relinquish this matter without a fight. And deep within, I harbored the dread that neither would Derek. Sleep eluded me that night. I reclined in bed beside Derek, my gaze fixed on the ceiling as the gentle rhythm of his breathing enveloped the space around us. His words reverberated in my mind. Midnight holds more significance for you than I ever could. Could that possibly be true? With utmost care, I eased myself from the warmth of the bed, ensuring Derek remained undisturbed, and ventured towards the stable. As I entered, Midnight welcomed me with a soft whinny, his ears alert and attentive. I extended my hand, tracing my fingers over the contours of his robust neck. Do I love you excessively? I murmured. Midnight pressed against my arm, a comforting warmth that lingered in the stillness of the night. Even against my better judgment, a smile crept onto my face. He remained oblivious to the world's inherent ugliness. He remained indifferent to whispers and allegations. Though our possessions were few, I implored him to allow me to take Midnight home. The auctioneer had forewarned that he would not survive. Yet, I chose to ignore the words spoken. I devoted countless nights to resting in the stable, nurturing him with bottle feedings every few hours. I kept vigil, watching over him as a mother would her beloved child. And in a remarkable twist of fate, he found the strength to rise above. He was entwined with me, and I with him. I let out a breath, grounding myself in the here and now. What would be the best way to convey that to Derek? How can I help him understand that Midnight meant so much more to me than just a horse? He was woven into the fabric of my being, a chapter of my past, a piece of my soul. Footsteps echoed behind me, prompting a swift turn to find Derek framed in the doorway, his arms crossed defiantly. You couldn't resist, could you? He remarked, his tone tinged with a blend of amusement and exasperation. A deep sigh escaped my lips. I simply required a moment to reflect. Derek moved in, his gaze fixed on Midnight. Lucy, it is clear that he holds significant importance in your life. I do indeed. However, it is essential to consider how it appears to others. I tightened my jaw. Appearance is of no concern to me. You ought to, he said softly, for it is no longer solely about you. It concerns the two of us. I took a deep breath. I felt a surge of defiance, a desire to assert that my love for either of them should not require justification. Yet, beneath the surface, I understood he was correct. I needed to discover a solution to rectify this situation. To Midnight, to Derek. For me, I found myself utterly lost, unsure of how to begin. The following morning, I remained indoors. Without stability, there can be no Midnight. Alone at the kitchen table, I find myself gazing at the coffee that remains untouched. Derek occupied the seat opposite me, idly turning the pages of the newspaper, feigning a sense of normalcy. Yet it was not. Today, you seem unusually silent, he finally remarked. I merely shrugged. I decided to provide you with what you desired. He gazed upward, a look of bewilderment crossing his face. What is the significance of that? Our gazes locked. I am keeping my distance from Midnight. Derek let out a weary sigh and placed the newspaper aside. Lucy, that's not quite what I intended to convey. Is it not? My voice cut through the air with an edge I hadn't meant to convey. You wish to keep me away from him. The town views me with disdain. Perhaps if I cease my visits to the stable, the incessant chatter will finally come to an end. Derek pressed his fingers to his forehead, a gesture of weariness. I never claimed that I wished for you to keep your distance from him. But you don't want me to love him, do you? I snapped. Stillness. Derek's jaw clenched with intensity. I did not make that statement. So, what exactly are you trying to convey, Derek? I rose to my feet, my hands trembling, because I am weary of being regarded as if I have committed some transgression. His gaze deepened into shadow. Lucy, all I desire is to have my wife return to me. I recoiled. I have always remained. Then why does it seem as though I've been in a relentless race against a damn horse? The words pierced like a sharp blade. I inhaled deeply, striving to maintain my composure. You are not in competition with him. He holds a place in my life, yet so do you. Derek inclined his body, fingers intertwined in a thoughtful gesture. Then demonstrate it. Offer midnight for sale. My heart seemed to freeze in that moment. What is this? His expression remained a mystery, shrouded in ambiguity. If it is truly just an ordinary connection, if it amounts to nothing more than the affection a rider holds for her horse, then release him. Prove to me that my significance surpasses all else. I gazed at him, a sensation akin to the earth being violently torn away from beneath my feet. Midnight transcended the mere definition of a horse. He was my kin. The mere idea of parting with him sent a pang through my chest, an ache that defied description. You're asking me to relinquish the one constant that has stood by my side, I whispered. Derek's gaze became tender. I ought to be the one who is perpetually present for you, Lucy. My vision was clouded by tears. Indeed, you are. Yet he is as well. He let out a weary sigh, his hands moving to rub his face in exasperation. I find myself questioning whether I can continue to exist in this manner any longer. I forced down the knot that had formed in my throat. Perhaps it's best if you refrain from doing so. The air was thick with unspoken words, laden with a sense of peril. Derek's expression grew steely. He rose to his feet, clutching his keys tightly. I require a breath of fresh air. I allowed him to continue unimpeded. I stood there, watching him walk out the door, the weight of the deafening silence settling around me. For the first time, a thought crept in. Was I on the brink of losing it all? Derek failed to return home that night. I reclined on the couch, the relentless ticking of the clock echoing in the silence as midnight slipped away, my heart growing heavier with every fleeting moment. I ought to have reached out to him. I ought to have battled with greater fervor. Yet, a fragment of my being felt utterly drained. As dawn broke, he finally stepped through the threshold, his weariness mirroring my own. His shirt hung in creases, his hair tousled and wild, and his eyes bore the telltale signs of sleeplessness, a deep crimson hue that spoke of a restless night. Where have you been? I inquired, my voice scarcely rising above a whisper. He let out a weary sigh, his hands moving to rub his face in exasperation. In a roadside motel. My stomach churned. Derek, I required a moment to reflect. He interrupted. Who we are. Concerning all of this, I folded my arms across my chest. What about it? He exhaled slowly. Lucy, do you hold affection for me? The inquiry took me by surprise. Certainly, I do. So, why do you seem to show him more affection? His voice trembled ever so slightly, and that pain cut deeper than anything else. I shook my head in disbelief. Derek, that simply isn't the case. He released a sharp breath. Please assist me in gaining clarity, for I observe the manner in which you interact with him. And I'm not solely referring to the hours you invest. The way your gaze lingers on him, the way your words dance around him. It feels as though he is the sole person who truly understands you. Emotion surged, causing tears to gather in my eyes. For there are moments when he truly is. Derek recoiled. I inhaled unsteadily. I don't mean to cause you any pain with my words. Midnight has accompanied me through experiences I've never dared to voice. He stood by my side during my moments of solitude. He stood by my side during the moments when I believed no one truly grasped my feelings. Perhaps I confide in him more than is wise, yet it's his unique ability to listen that draws me in, a rarity among others. Derek swept his fingers through his hair. Yet, I pay attention, Lucy. I cleared my vision. I am aware, and I cherish you for it. Yet this town, they remain unresponsive. They distort the truth. They transform something innocent into something grotesque. His expression became gentler. You never even seemed to care about the whispers that floated around. A harsh laugh escaped my lips. I possess a clear understanding of my identity, and I understand the significance of midnight in my life. There is no need for me to justify my existence to a community that has already rendered its verdict against me. Derek averted his gaze for what felt like an eternity, as if he were sifting through the weight of my words. He let out a deep sigh, shaking his head in resignation. Oh, how foolish I was to question you, wasn't I? A single tear traced its way down my cheek. Indeed, to some extent. He offered me a melancholic smile. Lucy, I sincerely apologize. I inhaled unsteadily. All I ever wanted was for you to have faith in me. Derek drew nearer, cradling my face gently within his hands. I certainly do. I truly do, I promise. After weeks of suffocating tension, a sense of relief washed over me, allowing me to finally draw in a deep breath. Perhaps the town would remain skeptical of my truth. Perhaps they would forever regard me with a sense of distrust. Yet, with Derek by my side, I found I could endure it all. Ultimately, he was the sole individual whose perspective truly held significance. Derek chose not to depart for work that morning. Instead, he brewed a pot of coffee and settled into the chair opposite me at the kitchen table. It seemed to be the first genuine moment of tranquility we had experienced in weeks. He stirred his coffee and said, "What shall we do next?" I exhaled gently, releasing the tension within me. "I'm uncertain. The town is unlikely to alter its stance in the blink of an eye." Derek inclined his head in acknowledgement. "However, that does not imply we must allow them to dictate the course of our existence." Our gazes locked. "Do you truly have faith in my words?" His expression became gentler. "Lucy, I am familiar with you. I allow others to invade my thoughts, and I feel a sense of shame about it. Yet, I am well acquainted with my wife, and I understand that Midnight is merely a steed to you. It's not merely a horse," I gently corrected. "He is part of our family." Derek let out a sigh, though this time, it carried no hint of frustration. "I understand it now." After weeks of burden, I finally sensed a release, as if a heavy weight had been lifted from my chest. That afternoon, I returned to the stable. Midnight approached me with his familiar nuzzle, and a smile spread across my face as I gently rubbed his muzzle. "I nearly lost it all because of you," I jested. "Yet, I suppose I cannot hold you accountable for the wretchedness of humanity." Midnight merely twitched his ears, indifferent to the whispers of the town. Derek entered the stable just behind me. "He truly is a sight to behold," he confessed, observing the witching hour. I glanced at him, taken aback. "That's a statement I've never heard from you before." Derek gave a nonchalant shrug. I found myself consumed by envy towards a horse. I chuckled softly, a bemused smile crossing my face as I shook my head in disbelief. "I can hardly wrap my mind around the fact that you genuinely believe that." "Don't remind me," he groaned, yet a smile danced upon his lips. We lingered in that moment, gazing into the depths of midnight, and for the first time, a glimmer of hope whispered that perhaps everything would turn out just fine. The town clung to it, never fully releasing its grip. Whispers would forever echo, glances would perpetually linger. Yet, I discovered the art of indifference. Derek and I emerged from it with newfound strength. Our conversation deepened. We shared more moments together. He even began assisting me in the stable, although he was utterly inept when it came to the art of riding. What of the midnight hour? He remained my sanctuary, my dearest companion, my heart. Yet, as the day drew to a close and I stepped back inside, enveloped in Derek's embrace, a singular truth crystallized in my mind. No choice was necessary for me. True love, genuine love, transcends the need for proof or validation. It revolved around the essence of comprehension. At long last, I found myself there. And thus, it concludes.